FDA panel rejects controversial PTSD drug combo. What you need to know. Imagine a groundbreaking opportunity to treat post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, with a new drug combination, only to have it fall short of approval. That's exactly what happened when the FDA's Psychopharmacologic Drugs Advisory Committee voted against the Brexpiprazole Sertraline combo for PTSD treatment. But here's where it gets controversial. The decision was made based on conflicting data from clinical trials, sparking debate among experts and patients alike. The committee, in a 10-to-1 vote, concluded that the efficacy of Brexpiprazole, when started concurrently with Sertraline, has not been sufficiently established for PTSD. This decision was based on a briefing document, https://www.fda.gov/media/1876117/download, that highlighted discrepancies between two Phase 3 trials. While one trial, designated as 071, showed promising results, the other, 072, was decidedly negative, failing to meet its primary and secondary endpoints. To bolster their case, the company submitted data from a Phase 2 study, 061. However, FDA reviewers raised concerns about the statistical and methodological soundness of this study. They pointed out that the data was retrospectively analyzed using post-hoc multiplicity control methods, which can inflate the risk of false positives. Committee member Jess Fedorowicz, MD, PhD, from the Ottawa Hospital, summed up the sentiment when he said, "Taken together, the data is not crossing that bar in my head." Dr. Walter Dunn, MD, PhD, from the West Los Angeles Veterans Affairs Medical Center, echoed this sentiment. Despite being a strong advocate for expanding PTSD treatment options, Dunn expressed doubt about the combination's efficacy due to the conflicting data. Murray Raskind, MD, from the University of Washington, added that translating these confusing and contradictory datasets into clinical practice would be challenging. He also questioned whether the combination would offer clinicians a new, effective tool. Currently, Brexpiprazole is approved for treating major depressive disorder, schizophrenia, and agitation associated with Alzheimer's dementia. However, the committee suggested that prescribing physicians might prefer to start with Sertraline alone and add Brexpiprazole if necessary. Third-party payers might also require this sequential approach, Dunn predicted. During the public comment period, Michael Abrams, PhD, MPH, from Public Citizen, criticized the data supporting the combination, calling it weak at best. He urged the committee and FDA to reject the combination based on the conflicting Phase 3 trials and the questionable post-hoc analysis of the Phase 2 trial data. The lone vote in favor of the combination came from Laura Block, PharmD, a retired clinical pharmacist and patient advocate. Block acknowledged that while both drugs are available individually, third-party payers are unlikely to cover the combination without FDA approval, potentially limiting access for some patients. At the same time, she emphasized the importance of avoiding destructive false hope and called for further Phase 3 or Phase 4 studies, regardless of approval. Currently, only 2 FDA-approved medications, Sertraline and paroxetine, are available for PTSD treatment. Many patients struggle to achieve remission or discontinue treatment due to side effects or lack of response. The proposed upfront co-initiation of Brexpiprazole with Sertraline represents a novel treatment paradigm. If approved, it would be the first new PTSD treatment in over 20 years. While the FDA is not bound by the advisory committee's recommendations, it often follows their advice. This decision highlights the importance of rigorous clinical trials and the need for clear, consistent data to guide treatment decisions. What do you think? Should the FDA approve this combination based on the available data, or should they wait for more conclusive evidence? Share your thoughts in the comments. Otsuka Holdings PTSD drug setback, a cautionary tale. Otsuka Holdings stalled PTSD drug, a cautionary tale for high-risk psychiatric drug development. In July 2025, Otsuka Holdings faced a pivotal setback when the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's FDA, Psychopharmacologic Drugs Advisory Committee, PDAC, rejected its application for Rexulti, Brexpiprazole, in combination with Sertraline for post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. The 10-to-1 vote against approval highlighted the FDA's skepticism over the drug's efficacy, citing discordant results in clinical trials. For Otsuka, a company whose psychiatric drug portfolio has long been a revenue driver, this outcome raises critical questions about the long-term risks of relying on high-stakes, late-stage psychiatric drug development. The PTSD application, a high-stakes gamble. Otsuka's PTSD application was marketed as a potential breakthrough, a first new pharmacological treatment for the condition in over 2 decades. The data package included 3 trials, 2 phase 3 studies and 1 phase 2 trial. While one phase 3 trial, Study 071, showed statistically significant improvements in PTSD symptoms, another, Study 072, failed to meet its primary endpoint. The FDA flagged these inconsistencies, with reviewers calling Study 072 clearly and convincingly a negative study. The DAC's rejection underscores a harsh reality in psychiatric drug development. The FDA demands rigorous, consistent evidence of efficacy, especially for conditions with limited treatment options. For Otsuka, this means a $200 million plus investment in Rexulti's PTSD application may yield no return, at least in the short term. The company now faces a choice: resubmit the application with additional data, a costly and time-consuming option, or pivot to other therapeutic areas. Financial resilience amid uncertainty. Otsuka's Q1 2025 financials, however, reveal a company in strong position. Revenue rose 12.2% year-over-year to 582.8 billion yen, driven by its pharmaceutical segment, which saw a 16.2% increase. Key products like Abilify Maintena and Rexulti remain cash cows, contributing significantly to the segment's growth. In 2022, Abilify alone generated 400 billion yen in sales, highlighting the company's entrenched presence in the psychiatric market. Despite the PTSD setback, Otsuka's diversified pipeline offers a buffer. The company's R&D strategy spans psychiatry, cardiovascular, and oncology, with 12 compounds in phase 3 trials as of March 2025. These include ulotaront for schizophrenia, sibeprenlimab for IgA nephropathy, and delamanid for tuberculosis. Such breadth reduces reliance on any single product and mitigates the risk of a catastrophic revenue drop. Strategic risks in a high-pressure sector. The psychiatric drug space is fraught with challenges. Unlike oncology, where biomarkers and survival metrics provide clear endpoints, psychiatric trials rely on subjective measures like the clinician-administered PTSD scale, CAPS-5. This subjectivity increases the likelihood of mixed results, as seen in Otsuka's PTSD trials. Moreover, antipsychotics like Brexpiprazole carry long-term risks, e.g., weight gain, movement disorders, which the FDA and advisory committee scrutinized closely. Otsuka's heavy investment in neuroscience also exposes it to regulatory and market volatility. For example, the recent rejection of MDMA-assisted therapy for PTSD in 2024 illustrates the FDA's cautious stance toward novel mental health treatments. If Otsuka's PTSD application is ultimately denied, the company could face reputational damage and investor skepticism, particularly if its pipeline lacks near-term approvals. The path forward: diversification as a lifeline. Otsuka's strategic response to the PTSD setback will be crucial. The company has already signaled its intent to work with the FDA, but resubmitting the application without addressing the trial inconsistencies could be a costly gamble. A smarter approach might involve redirecting R&D resources toward its other late-stage candidates, such as sibeprenlimab for IgA nephropathy, which is already filed for approval in the US, or ulotaront for schizophrenia. The company's collaboration model also provides a safety net. Partnerships with Sumitomo Pharma, Ionis Pharmaceuticals, and Esperion Therapeutics have expanded its pipeline without straining internal resources. For instance, the licensing deal for ION 363, ulefnersen, for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, leverages Ionis antisense technology, reducing Otsuka's R&D burden. Investment implications. For investors, Otsuka's situation presents a mix of risk and opportunity. On the one hand, the company's reliance on psychiatric drugs, a sector prone to regulatory and clinical setbacks, poses a long-term threat. On the other, its diversified pipeline and strong cash flow position it to weather short-term storms. The key question is whether Otsuka can balance its focus on high-risk, high-reward projects, like PTSD, with more predictable growth areas, e.g., IgA nephropathy, tuberculosis. If the company continues to overcommit to psychiatric drugs, its stock could become a volatile play. However, if it leverages its partnerships and shifts toward its more robust cardiovascular and oncology candidates, it may prove a resilient long-term holding. Conclusion: Otsuka's stalled PTSD application is a cautionary tale for pharmaceutical companies chasing blockbuster psychiatric drugs. While the company's financials and pipeline suggest it can withstand this setback, the broader lesson is clear. Over-reliance on high-risk, late-stage projects in a subjective, regulatory-heavy sector is a dangerous strategy. For Otsuka, the path forward lies in balancing innovation with prudence, a challenge that will define its success in the years ahead. Investors would be wise to monitor how the company navigates this crossroads, as the outcome could shape its trajectory for decades.